girlies, it's Miss Lady Lace here on my Glamour channel, and today I have for you my next fabulous video where I'm going to be sharing with you my burlesque journey, how I became a burlesque dancer, and some of my career highlights. A little while ago, I posted up a version of this sharing my pinup journey, how I got into pinup modeling and everything to do with that, and it was quite heavily requested that I create another video sharing my burlesque journey. I'll be sharing how I became interested in burlesque, my career highlights, and a little bit more. I won't be including every single show that I have been in and every amazing production I've been a part of, as this video would just be far too long, so I'm just focusing on very much the highlights and things that I'm really proud of. I'd love to know in the comments below, are you yourself a burlesque artist or someone who loves to watch burlesque shows? I'd love to know a little bit about your own burlesque journey in the comments. Share how you became interested in burlesque and some of your own career highlights if you're a dancer yourself. So we'll start at the beginning. Ever since I was a very small child, I've always been interested in vintage fashion, historical wear, and musicals. A lot of these things I didn't fully understand were vintage fashion or had elements of burlesque, but I was drawn to these things so much. In 2006, I was 14 years old and I discovered this amazing burlesque dancer called Dita Von Teese. I'd originally seen her in magazines and she eventually started popping up online, and I was so captivated with how glamorous and beautiful she was. She had a true sense of sensuality to her, but she wasn't shamed for being provocative and sexual, and that's really something that drew me to her. After finding Dita, I began to do my own research, though this was very limited. Back in 2006, YouTube was actually only released the year before, which is crazy now. It was much harder to find information about all these things, so I did the best that I could. Some of the earliest vintage burlesque dancers I discovered were Betty Page, because she was having quite a revival, and Tempest Storm. At the age of 14, I actually created my stage name, Lady Lace. It changed briefly throughout time. A little bit later it was Lady Laced, then it came to Miss Lady Lace as we all know it today. I created my stage name because I really dreamt of being a pinup girl and a burlesque artist one day, not really thinking I could make it my reality, but I used it as my username for online websites, which is a little bit funny now. I had such big dreams and I started writing down in this little planner acts I wanted to create, costumes I wanted to work on, my aspirations for the future, not really thinking I could actually make anything of them, but I had so much fun at the time, being this 14-year-old going into 15, working on all these crazy ideas. In 2008, I was now 16 and I discovered that in Perth we had our own burlesque troupe. They're called Sugar Blue Burlesque, and I actually found out that they were doing classes in Perth, which was just so amazing. At this time, I wasn't old enough to attend many of them, but they did have some all-age classes with vintage dance and showgirl being the topics of these. I took a couple courses and at 16 I performed my first ever group showgirl performance. Being on stage was absolutely intoxicating, and getting to be backstage with these incredibly beautiful and confident women inspired me so much. And in that moment, I knew that I couldn't give up on my burlesque dreams. In 2010, I was 18. I took a group burlesque course, followed by my first burlesque solo course, where I got to perform on stage as a solo artist, and I just reveled in every moment of that. When I started burlesque, I used to do a lot more alternative, darker performance art. I thought I could be edgy and cool, but in the end, I came back to the classic beautiful looks, as that's what really captivated me towards this art form to begin with. So I performed my first solo in October. By November, I was signed to a dance company where I worked for 4 years. Being 18, this was such an amazing opportunity. So few artists are given a contract with a dance company, so this was a fabulous opportunity that I really did learn so much from. I began dancing as a solo artist and I got to perform at some amazing shows and venues. In 2011, I had probably been doing burlesque properly now for about 6 to 9 months, and I actually decided decided to enter Miss Burlesque Australia in the Western Australian heat. It was such an incredible opportunity to be accepted into this and get to produce some performances for it, and it was a huge learning curve for me. I also applied for the Australian Burlesque Festival and I was accepted into their Melbourne production, so I got to travel over east and perform in my first Burlesque festival. Almost a year into my career, this was an amazing opportunity. I wasn't sure at this point how viable being a performer would be, so I decided to apply for WAPA studying costuming. I submitted a portfolio, came in for an interview, and I was accepted into their costuming course. So for 2012, a lot of my time was spent studying. That year was really defining for me as it really brought out how important performing was to me. I was now backstage working on costuming. I had very limited time to actually work on my burlesque skills. Now, I will say I did learn so many important skills that I do utilize in my burlesque career from studying costuming. But toward the end of the year, I decided I was in my first year of costuming. I could either proceed for the next few years and give up a lot of performing opportunities, or I could leave at this point and really focus in on actually doing burlesque. So I did decide to leave the costuming course. I started teaching burlesque. I got to teach with Sugar de Jour for a little while, which was really fabulous. And this opened a new chapter for me. In 2013, I was accepted again to perform in the Miss Burlesque Western Australia heat. And again, it was just such a magical experience and such an amazing opportunity to meet performers. This year I became very serious about dancing. I started training really hard. I was pretty much attending classes every single day, 2 to 4 classes a day. So I was training really hard to work on a goal. I'd found an amazing performing arts institute in Western Australia called the Principal Academy of Dance and Theatre. So at the end of 2013, I auditioned for this dance school and I was accepted, and I was just so over the moon because I wouldn't say that I'm the strongest dancer. I'm definitely a dance background, but performing is my strong point, but I wanted to work further on my dance to include into my burlesque. In 2014, I studied full-time for half the year. I was studying performing arts as a dance major. It was an intense time filled with so much hard work. Some days we'd be dancing for 7 hours, and we'd also do theory work classes on top of this. Unfortunately though, I do have a lot of problems with my body, both with my health and chronic health issues, and also with chronic injuries that do crop up for me. It was around mid-year that I sadly tore both my hip flexors. It was super painful, but I continued to attend every class after this and take notes until I could return to dance. After this, I went back part-time and completed that year. I continued to perform during this time while studying, just taking a bit of time off when I had my injury. 2014 was another hugely pivotal movement for my career. I'd been thinking for a little while, but I did at that time decide to leave the dance company I'd been working at for 4 years at that point. This was truly a terrifying decision to make. I really wanted to further expand what I was doing and really focus on creating my own productions and things like that. So I left the dance company at that point and started my work as a freelance performer. I really wasn't sure where this would take me though. There weren't a huge number of burlesque artists working freelance. A lot of the bigger dancers did work with dance companies and troupes, so making this decision was terrifying, but I've got to tell you, in the end, it really did pay off. In 2015, I spent a lot of time working on me as an artist. I really focused on creating dance classes and pinup classes. I also started producing my own shows. When I worked at my previous dance company, I definitely assisted quite a bit, but this was the first time I started putting on things myself, which was so exciting. That year, I also met Dita Von Teese, so it was an amazing moment to meet the woman that had inspired all of this. In 2016, I continued to work hard, performing on shows, working at corporate functions and all that fun stuff. But I did become a little preoccupied with planning and designing everything for that year, as I was getting married in October, so that was a really big thing going on in my life. I also launched the Pinup Prom that year, which is my really big annual ball. It ran until 2019, only just now taking a break with the COVID pandemic, but will hopefully be back very soon. In 2017, I decided it was my year to shine. I launched my business as a full-time endeavor, so I was giving all my time to this. I won a few titles in the pinup industry. I competed in Miss Burlesque, Western Australia again. I got to travel all the way to New Zealand to perform in their International Burlesque Festival, which was a huge, amazing opportunity. And I also went to Melbourne to perform in the Australian Burlesque Festival again, and this was the first time I'd actually applied in quite a few years, so it was amazing to go back to the place where I first performed in a burlesque festival. In 2018, I had lots of fun taking part in lots of different shows in Perth. For me, I really started being involved in more of the community and taking part in all these amazing events, so I had so much fun doing all of that. I was also accepted to perform in the Brisbane leg of the Australian Burlesque Festival, and I got to meet so many amazing performers there and have so much fun on stage. I've not got it in my notes, but I'm quite sure I was also a finalist for the Miss Burlesque Western Australia contest again. 2019 was one hell of a year, and I'm so glad that I got to do so much before the pandemic hit. To kickstart the year, I produced my very first Fringe Festival show. I'd actually been taking part in Fringe since the very beginning, but I actually decided to curate my first show, which was the Vintage Glamour Burlesque Hour, and I was so proud with how the show went. That year, I was accepted as a finalist into the Viva Las Vegas Pinup contest, so I also decided to tour and perform around the country. I got to perform with a live band in New Orleans and perform in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Coming back from this amazing trip to America, I then got to judge the Apprentice Burlesque competition, which is a newer burlesque event formed for our newer burlesque performers. I competed in Miss Burlesque Western Australia again and had the most amazing time doing this. I was also accepted as a performer into the Perth International Burlesque Festival, and this had so many amazing headliners, so it was so fabulous to meet all these inspiring people, work with amazing local talent, and contribute towards this amazing event. Coming into 2020, it was an insanely challenging year. It started on such a high with an amazing Fringe Festival, and I actually won Burlesque Idol Perth, which was such a huge honor. It was soon after this point that the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and it felt like my life was over. The thing that had been the source of passion and inspiration for me had been taken away, and it was looking like I wouldn't be performing again for a very long time. I have a lot of health issues that go on outside what I'm about to discuss, but I started having trouble with my lungs, not related to COVID-19, but put me high risk for COVID-19. And I was accepted as a finalist to Miss Burlesque Western Australia, but even as the pandemic got a little bit better here, I had to pull out due to health issues. It took a bit of healing time and waiting for things to get a little bit better here, but I was accepted into the Perth International Burlesque Festival for 2020, and that was really such a beautiful highlight to the end of my year. Burlesque has brought me so many amazing opportunities, so many incredible friendships, and it really is the meaning of life for me. Being able to perform and have fun and create glamour is really what I live for. I'm truly blessed to do this as a job and have so many amazing supportive people around me. My friends, my family, and my husband are all my biggest supporters, and it's such a beautiful thing to have. This has been my burlesque journey. It's definitely not over yet, though things may be a little bit more affected by the pandemic for the next couple years. I'm working truly hard to continue to create beautiful burlesque art. I'd like to thank Adora Derriere and Miss Burlesque Australia. Most of the footage used in the video today has been kindly provided by them, and it's so lovely that they were able to let me use this footage for this video. If you'd like early access to my videos, exclusive content, as well as to help support me here on YouTube, I have my Glamour community on Patreon. I'd like to thank all my patrons, but especially my VIP Glamour patrons, which I will list here. The support you give me truly helps me in creating more videos here on YouTube. To follow my daily pinup and burlesque related adventures, I post super regularly to Instagram. I'll pop a little link here as well as the end of the video. And to never miss out on my vintage fun, be sure to hit subscribe below, turn on those bell notifications, and I will be seeing you all real soon.